English learners. Welcome to the English Podcast. Today, we are going to discuss a very important topic for anyone who wants to speak better at work or in daily life: how to clarify your ideas.
That sounds like a great topic, Sarah. You know, many learners tell me they feel very nervous when they have to speak. They have the ideas in their head, but the words just don't come out right.
I know exactly how that feels. It's actually very common. In fact, many university students feel the same way. They sometimes feel like an imposter, like they aren't actually as good at English as people think they are. This is called foreign language anxiety.
I've felt that too. So, Sarah, let me ask you a simple question to start. Why is it so hard to speak clearly when we are stressed?
That's an interesting question, Mark. When we are stressed, we often feel like we are up to our neck in pressure. Our brains are trying to do many things at once. We are trying to remember grammar, choose the right words, and listen to the other person.
It's like juggling a lot of tasks at the same time, right?
Exactly. And when we feel butterflies in our stomach, our brain sometimes freezes. That is why today we are going to look at some techniques to help you. Specifically, we will talk about buying time, sequencing your ideas, and giving examples.
Buying time. That sounds useful. Does that mean I can pay someone to give me more time to speak?
Not quite, Mark. Buying time means using specific English expressions that give your brain a few extra seconds to think about what you want to say.
Oh, I see. So instead of just staying silent or saying for a long time, I use a phrase.
Precisely. If you are in a meeting and someone asks you a difficult question, you might feel on edge or jumpy. Instead of panicking, you can use a time-buying expression.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. One of the best ones is simply saying, "That's a good question."
That's a good question. That is so simple.
It is. When you say "that's a good question," it does two things. First, it makes the other person feel good because you liked their question. Second, it gives you about 2 or 3 seconds to plan your answer. You can also say, "Let me think about that for a second."
I like that. It sounds much more professional than just being silent. What if the question is really hard?
Then you can say, that is an interesting question, I would say." Or you could say, "Let's see. That is not an easy question to answer." These phrases are like fillers. They fill the silence while your brain works.
So it's okay to admit I'm thinking. I always thought I had to answer immediately.
Not at all. Native speakers use these phrases all the time. Using them actually makes you sound more natural and pro. It shows you are present in the moment and thinking carefully.
You know, Sarah, I often worry that if I speak too slowly while I'm thinking, I will sound like I don't know English.
That's a very common fear. But actually, speaking louder and slower often makes you sound more confident. When people are nervous, they often speak too fast and unclearly. If you slow down and use full sentences, it shows you aren't afraid to communicate.
So buying time helps me slow down. What else can I do if I'm feeling stressed in that moment?
You can use your body language to help your mind stay calm. For example, try lengthening your spine. Don't just sit stiffly. Imagine your back is being suspended from your head. This helps you breathe better. And don't forget to smile.
Smiling? Even if I'm stressed to the max?
Yes, a genuine smile makes you look approachable. It signals to others that you want to connect with them. If you look grim or disappointed, it can make the conversation feel heavy.
That makes sense. Okay, so I've bought some time, my spine is long, and I'm smiling. Now I need to actually say something. You mentioned sequencing language earlier. What is that?
Sequencing language is a super simple way to put your ideas into a logical order. It helps your listener follow what you're saying. Think of it like a map for your conversation.
Like using first and second?
Exactly. If you have 2 or 3 points to make, start by saying, "I would like to say 2 things in response to that." This is a great trick. By saying two things, you signal to the other people that they should not interrupt you until you finish both points.
Oh, that's smart. It protects my turn to speak.
Yes, it's very useful in hectic meetings or on conference calls where you can't see everyone's face. You can even hold up two fingers to show you have 2 points.
So, what words do I use to connect these points?
For your first point, you can use in the first place, first of all, or just first. For the second point, you can say secondly, next, or after that.
And to finish?
To finish your list, you can use finally, lastly, or last of all. And if you want to summarize everything, you say in conclusion or to sum up.
That sounds like it would make my English feel much more organized. Instead of my ideas being all wrong and mixed up, they have a structure.
Exactly. It's about building spoken competence. Even if you make small grammar mistakes, if your ideas are in a good order, people will understand you much better.
You know, Sarah, sometimes I hear people at work use words like synergy or leverage. They sound so professional. Are those part of sequencing?
Those are buzzword or jargon. They're like shortcuts for bigger ideas. For example, synergy just means teamwork that gets great results. Leveraging means using what you have to get a benefit.
Should I use those words too?
Only if you really know what they mean. If you use too many buzzwords, you might sound confusing. It is always better to be clear than to sound cool. If you aren't sure, use simple English. Good communication is about being understood.
That's a good reminder. The thing is, I sometimes feel like I'm walking on eggshells when I speak English because I'm so afraid of making a mistake.
I understand, but remember, making mistakes is a natural part of learning. Even proficient users of English make mistakes sometimes. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to get your message across.
So, we've talked about buying time and organizing ideas with sequencing, but you also said we should give examples. Why is that so important?
Giving examples is the fastest way to make your ideas seem credible. It provides evidence for what you're saying. It makes your abstract ideas feel real.
So, if I say our sales are down, I should give an example of why?
Exactly. You could say there are two reasons why sales are down. Firstly, the weather is too warm. For instance, fewer people are buying our heaters. Secondly, our competitors have lower prices.
For instance, I usually just say, for example. Are they the same?
Yes, they are very similar. You can also use phrases like, if I can use an example, or to illustrate my point. If you have a list of things, you can use such as. For example, we work with many big companies, such as Volvo, BMW, and Ford.
I see. So using these phrases makes me sound like I have more bandwidth for the conversation.
Look at you using business jargon. Yes, having bandwidth means you have the time and energy to handle the conversation.
I'm trying, but to be honest, sometimes I just feel buried in work and my brain is hectic. It's hard to remember all these rules when I'm busy.
That's okay. You don't need to learn them all at once. Set realistic goals. Maybe this week, just try to use one phrase to buy time, like, that's a good question.
One thing at a time. I can do that. You know, Sarah, I noticed that when you talk, you use words like actually or to be honest a lot. Are those fillers too?
Yes, they are. We call them fluency boost phrases. They help you start your response without a long pause. If you want to correct someone politely, you can say, actually. If you want to share a real opinion, you say, to be honest.
What if I'm not 100% sure about a fact?
You can say, if I'm not mistaken, this shows you're being careful with your information. Or if you want to explain something in a simpler way, you can say, let me put it this way.
I like that. It's like saying, let me try again with simpler words.
Exactly. It's a great way to restructure your sentence if you get stuck. Sarah, this is a lot of great information. I'm starting to feel less like I'm between a rock and a hard place with my English.
I'm so glad to hear that, Mark. It really is about practice. One thing that helps many learners is reading out loud.
When you read a book or a website aloud for a few minutes a day, it builds confidence in how your voice sounds. That's a good tip. I usually just read silently.
Try it. It helps you enunciate your words more clearly. And remember, the most important person you talk to every day is yourself. If you tell yourself English is too hard, you will believe it. Use positive self-talk instead. Tell yourself, today I learned one new thing and tomorrow I will learn more.
Today, I learned how to buy time. I like that.
You did, and you also learned that it's okay to be a bit nervous. Even people with anxious personalities can be great English speakers. Anxiety is often just a result of the situation, not a lack of skill.
That makes me feel much better.
You know, Sarah, you mentioned staying calm and using time-buying phrases, but what happens in that moment when I completely forget a word? My mind goes blank and I feel like an imposter again. It's a very scary feeling.
That is a very common fear, Mark. Even advanced learners feel this way. When this happens, we use what experts call compensation strategies. These are Plan B techniques to get your message across when you lack the exact English word.
Compensation strategies, so it's like a backup plan.
Exactly. The most powerful one is called circumlocution. It sounds like a big word, but it just means describing something instead of naming it. For example, if you forget the word knife, you could say the thing you cut with.
Oh, I see. So if I forget the word teapot, I could say the dark object used for catching the tea?
Precisely. Or if you are describing a fence and forget the word, you could say it's like a metal wall that protects the house. This keeps the conversation moving. You don't have to stop just because one word is missing.
That takes a lot of pressure off. I also noticed that some people use their hands a lot when they speak English. Is that a strategy too?
Yes, it is. Gesturing is a great way to substitute for language. If you can't think of the word square or triangular, you can draw the shape in the air with your fingers. It helps the other person understand you, even if your words aren't perfect.
I suppose that makes the conversation feel more present. But Sarah, what about professional settings? I want to sound more natural when I'm explaining my ideas. Sometimes I feel like I repeat, I think, too many times.
That's where clarifying phrases come in. Instead of just saying, I think, you can rephrase your idea to make it sharper. You can use the phrase, what I mean is, or let me put it another way.
What I mean is, that sounds very clear.
It is. It's useful when you see a confused look on someone's face. You can also use, how can I put it, while you are searching for the most polite or professional words. It shows the listener that you are thinking carefully about your response.
I like those. They sound much better than just saying, What about adding more facts to my point? I usually just say, and then.
To sound more professional, try using in addition or not only that, but, for instance, you could say, the project is on time. In addition, we have stayed under budget. These are fluency tools that make you sound like a pro.
Speaking of sounding like a pro, I keep hearing people use these strange business words. My boss said we need to circle back to a topic and touch base tomorrow. It's like a secret language.
You're right, Mark. We call that corporate lingo or jargon. Circle back just means to talk about something again later, and touch base means to contact someone for a quick update.
Should I start using these words to sound more corporate?
Only if you are 100% sure of the meaning. A big mistake many learners make is trying to use too many buzzwords at once. If you say, let's leverage a blue sky thinking synergy, no one will understand you.
That does sound very confusing.
It is. Always remember, clarity is more important than looking cool. In fact, it is often better to use simple English, especially when speaking to clients or people who might not know the business jargon. Good communication is about being understood.
That's a relief. I'll focus on being clear first. But Sarah, how do I actually know if the other person understands me? Sometimes they just nod, but I'm not sure.
You should use comprehension checks. These are short questions to verify that your message was received. You can simply ask, do you get it? Or does that make sense?
And what if I'm the one who's confused? I'm often too embarrassed to admit I didn't understand a native speaker.
Don't be embarrassed. It is much more professional to ask for help than to pretend you understand and then make a mistake later. You can use clarification requests. You can say, "What do you mean by that?" Or, "Could you explain that in another way?"
What do you mean by that? That's a good one. I've also heard people say, so if I understand you correctly, and then they repeat what I said.
That is called an interpretive summary. It is a very high-level skill. You repeat the other person's idea in your own words to ensure you're both on the same page. It's a great way to avoid breakdowns in communication.
This is all very helpful. It feels like I'm building a toolbox of phrases, but I have to ask, does it ever get easier to just speak without all these strategies?
It does, but it takes deliberate practice. A great tip is to start by using these strategies in your emails. In an email, you have time to think about the order of your ideas and choose the right phrases. This trains your brain for when you have to speak in person later.
That's a smart way to start. I can practice my first, second, finally order in writing first.
Exactly. And when you have a conference call or a meeting, prepare in advance. Think about the technical questions people might ask you and plan your responses using sequential order. The more you prepare, the less foreign language anxiety you will feel.
I notice that when I'm nervous, I tend to give very short answers. Like if someone asks my favorite color, I just say blue.
That's a common habit for learners, but to gain confidence, you should try to speak in full sentences. Instead of just blue, you could say, "My favorite color is blue because it reminds me of the ocean." Giving longer responses makes you sound more fluent and interesting.
Speak in full sentences. I'll write that one down.
Also, don't forget to enunciate. Pronounce your words clearly and slowly. When we are nervous, we often mumble, which makes it very hard for others to understand us. If you speak a bit louder and clearer, people will perceive you as more confident.
I've definitely been guilty of mumbling when I'm unsure. It's like I'm trying to hide the words.
We've all been there. But remember, it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, good language learners are often willing to make mistakes because they know it's the only way to improve. They focus more on the meaning of the conversation than on perfect grammar.
So the goal is to be a successful communicator, not a perfect dictionary.
Exactly. Even native speakers use fillers like, I mean, or you see to fill pauses while they think. It's a natural part of human speech.
You know, Sarah, I'm starting to realize that English is less about rules and more about these social skills.
You've hit the nail on the head, Mark. It's about strategic competence, the ability to keep the conversation going even when things get difficult. Whether you are using a filler to buy time, a gesture to explain a shape, or a rephrasing to clarify a complex idea, you are actively managing the communication.
I'm feeling much more in control now. I'm going to try to use at least 2 of these time-buying phrases in my meeting tomorrow.
That is a fantastic goal. Start small and you will see your confidence grow. We've covered a lot about how to handle the moments of speaking, but there is one more thing we should discuss: how to handle the aftermath, how to evaluate yourself without being too hard on your own progress.
You know, Sarah, we've covered so many great techniques for the actual conversation, but what about the aftermath? Often, after I finish a meeting in English, I spend the whole drive home thinking about all the mistakes I made. I feel like that imposter again, and it makes me not want to speak next time.
That is a very important point, Mark. This is actually a specific stage of learning called evaluating strategies. Many learners are very hard on themselves. They have high expectations, and when they don't meet them, they brood over their mistakes instead of learning from them.
That's me. I brood for hours. How can I evaluate myself without feeling like a failure?
The key is to move from general bad feelings to identifying specific problems. Instead of saying, "My English was terrible," try to remember 1 or 2 specific moments where you struggled. Maybe you couldn't find the word for budget, or you spoke too softly. When you identify the specific problem, you can find a specific solution.
So instead of I'm bad at English, I should say I need to practice the word budget.
Exactly. This is part of positive self-talk. Remember, the most important person you talk to every day is yourself. If you tell yourself you'll never improve, your brain starts to believe it. But if you say, today I learned how to use a time buying phrase, and tomorrow I will learn something else, you build your confidence.
I like that. It feels more like a work in progress. But Sarah, why does it feel so personal when I make a mistake? It feels like everyone is looking at me.
That feeling is called the fear of losing face. In many cultures, we want to show that we are competent and skilled. When we make a mistake in a second language, we feel like our proficiency face is threatened. We fear that people will ridicule us or think we aren't smart.
Yes, I'm afraid of being ridiculed by others in the room because of a wrong word choice.
But here's a secret. Most of the time, the other people are just trying to understand your message. They aren't looking for perfect grammar. In fact, many people find it impressive that you are communicating in a second language at all. To help with this, it's useful to set realistic goals.
What would a realistic goal look like for someone like me?
Instead of trying to sound like a native speaker immediately, which is very difficult, your goal should be to be a successful communicator. Maybe your goal for your next meeting is simply to use one comprehension check, like asking, does that make sense? If you do that, you have succeeded.
Small wins. I can handle that. You also mentioned some practical ways to practice outside of meetings.
Yes, one of the best ways to build the muscle memory of English is to read out loud. When you read a website or a book you enjoy out loud for just a few minutes, you get used to the sound of your own voice in English. It helps you enunciate more clearly, so you don't mumble when you're nervous.
I usually read silently, but I'll try reading out loud tonight. What about recording myself?
That is a fantastic idea. Recording yourself helps you hear where you are speaking too fast or too softly. It's like being your own teacher. You can also listen to how you use fillers like well or let me see to fill pauses.
I've noticed that when I'm nervous, I speak too fast because I want to finish quickly.
And that often leads to more mistakes. So remember our tip from earlier. Speak louder and slower. Speaking loudly enough for the whole room to hear actually makes you feel more confident, even if you don't feel it inside yet. It's a fake it till you make it strategy.
I can do that. Sarah, what if I'm in a situation where I'm stressed to the max and my mind just goes totally blank, like 0 words?
First, use your body language to calm down. Take a breath. Inhale through your nose during a pause rather than gasping for air at the end of a sentence. Then use a very simple stalling phrase. You can say, give me a moment to check my notes.
Give me a moment. That buys me time to breathe.
Exactly. And if you still can't find the English word, you can use circumlocution. Describe the idea instead of the word. Or, as a last resort, it is okay to ask for help. You can say, how do you say, this shows you are active in the conversation?
I always thought asking for help made me look weak, but it actually keeps the conversation moving.
Precisely. It shows strategic competence. You are managing the communication. And don't forget the power of a genuine smile. It makes you approachable and signals that you want to connect with the other person, which lowers the tension for everyone.
So the big takeaway is that English is a complex, multifaceted skill. It's not just about grammar, it's about how I manage my anxiety, my body, and my strategies.
You've got it, Mark. It takes time and deliberate practice. Start by using these sequencing and time-buying phrases in your emails first. Since you have more time to think in writing, it trains your brain to organize ideas. Then try them in a low-pressure chat with a colleague.
I'm feeling much more present in the moment now. I realize that everyone makes mistakes, even advanced learners. The goal is just to get the message across.
That's the spirit. Remember, even native speakers use fillers and repeat themselves when they're thinking. It's a natural part of human speech. You're not an imposter, you're a learner, and every conversation is a chance to grow.
I'm actually looking forward to my meeting tomorrow now. I'm going to focus on lengthening my spine and using firstly, secondly to keep my points clear.
That's a great plan. And if you get stuck, just remember that's a good question is your best friend for buying those extra seconds.
I've definitely learned a lot today. It's like I'm building a toolbox for my English speaking.
It really is a toolbox, and the more you use these tools, the more automatic they become. Eventually, you won't even have to think about it. You'll just be communicating naturally and confidently.
It's all about that bandwidth, right?
Using these strategies frees up my brain to focus on the actual conversation instead of just worrying about grammar.
Exactly. You are moving from surviving a conversation to managing it, and that is where the real progress happens.